Hi, Big Jim here, Lucille Marie, talking about recoating our doors. And one of the steps that always bedevils me, and uh, I usually hesitate or procrastinate doing, is sanding between coats. It's a unfortunate necessary evil. You have to do it, otherwise you're not going to get a good result. And what happens a lot of times when you're either doing varnish or resin and stuff is that the you end up with little high spots, little bumps where the resin collects and then beads up. And when it hardens, you've got these bumps, and in many cases, it won't affect the effectiveness of the resin or the varnish, but it just looks bad. The other part of it is if it's in an area where you have tight tolerances, like these are the edges of the doors, the bubbles can actually catch on each other and then make the doors harder to close or bind up and things like that. So you want to get rid of them if at all possible. So the unfortunate thing is you've got to sand. And a lot of people resent sanding. It's one of those things you have to do. And then you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, I just put all that resin on and now I'm sanding it all off. Well, that is true too. So the trick there is you got to use some light sandpaper. You don't want to use the real coarse stuff. So this is 100 that I'm using right here. So 100 will take the resin off without taking a lot of the flat surfaces. What you want to do is just take off the high spots. Now, the trick there is you want to try to avoid using machines unless you're really trying to get it down to a flat surface, because they just don't have the sensitivity that you have with your fingers. And so what I've been doing here is I've been sanding these pieces by hand and just concentrating on the areas where the lumps are and leaving the rest untouched as much as possible. I just do a light over sanding on those just to give it an area for the new resin to bind on. Now, the second coat of the door from yesterday, this is the second coat, is pretty darn smooth. There's a couple flat spots that I probably need to touch up again. I think I mentioned that in the previous video that I need to do. But other than that, I just need to sand this down and get it ready. So it's a lot of fun. No, it's not. And I'm sure you've done plenty of sanding yourself, so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this off camera and get it ready. So the main part here is this door is much better than the other door. I had a bunch of bumps on the top of the door. And a lot of it comes from when you're laying the piece down and painting it with the resin, that if you don't do it in a thin enough coat, it'll start to droop or run, and then you've got to make sure you go back over it with the brush and hit it again. So just remember that when you're painting, it's really important that the initial stage of putting the resin on or the varnish on is the most important part. So keep your brush nearby and keep going over the surfaces. Make sure that you have a good coverage on each piece and an even coverage. One of the things that I've done in the pieces is I'll come back with the hair dryer and heat up the area if I see some streaks in there or something like that. And that seems to really do a good job to close up those areas, and the resin will lay down in a nice smoother coat. Another thing that you'll need to keep an eye out for is there are sometimes divots and seams in your wood, and that then is reflected in the finished surface of the varnish or the resin. And it's funny, you think that the crevice would be filled up with resin and then level out, but it doesn't. The only time it'll level out is if you actually sand that down. So you get a surface on there, a nice coating of resin or varnish, and then once it dries, then you got to go back over it. Now the other part of it is sanding it when it was still partially wet. Depending on the kind of resin you're using, usually you can start sanding within a few hours, but it can be gummy. And that's what I noticed here with the Total Boat resin, that even though the surface may be hard, underneath that thin surface, there's sometimes gummy resin. So you really ought to wait at least 24 hours. This door now is at least 48 hours now, because I do, well, actually no, I think the door is, because I did this in the morning yesterday. So basically it's 24 hours since I coated the outside, or the inside of the door. Then I coated, once that dried, I flipped it over and then did the outside of the door. And then now I'm back on the inside and putting the second coat on. So the second coat of the outside is done. It should be 24 hours by noon or afternoon at some point. And then that'll be ready for a little light sanding to start putting the varnish on. And then right now I'm putting the last coat of resin on the inside of the doors. So that should hopefully be done in a few minutes after I get done sanding, which is always fun. Anyways, talk to you later.